at 10:30 at the City Hall. Being a special meeting, we're just going to have, we're going to forgo the prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance and go straight to a roll call. Roll call from my right, please.
Taylor here.
Right here.
Coleman here.
We are all here. I have a little statement I'd like to read before we get started. We are at this time going to entertain any citizens' comments. As always, these comments can address any subject matter. However, this will also be the only opportunity to address this retail and demographic study today by the public. This EDC board nor any of its representatives have seen this study. Because of time restraints, we'll limit any questions of the presenter to members of the EDC board. As promised, this study will be made available to the city staff and to the members of the city council. That will be done within 48 hours of today's presentation. Should any questions arise, we request that those questions are forwarded to the executive director of the EDC in writing, and he will acquire the proper response in a timely manner. It will also be up on our website within 48 hours. These requests are made with the intention of streamlining communications and to eliminate duplicate questions or concerns being directly made to the study's authors. We appreciate everyone's cooperation with this request. At this time, is there anybody that'd like to speak before we start? All right, Mr. Michelik.
Yes, sir. Thank you, board and council members, and Mr. President Lee Peterson, and then members of the community. Thank you very much for having me. Today what we're going to go over is our retail trade area analysis. Now, please keep in mind this is a 30,000-foot flyover view. Okay, we've submitted multiple reports to the EDC. Over 140 separate maps were gathered based off of cell phone user data. So there is a tremendous amount of information at your disposal. We've presented that to Lee and to Ashley with the EDC. They've made clear that they'll be happy to distribute as requested and required. And then, of course, my contact information, our company's contact information is at the end of all of those reports. And we can make ourselves available to the board, city council, any elected officials. And then Lee, my understanding is going to take the public's questions, filter those through you, and then send them to me as needed. And we'll be happy to answer any questions that may come up at any time. So with that, we'll go ahead and start this. And what I'd like to start out is just telling you what we found and what we did. Okay, and you can look on your screens as we go through this, but the first thing that we wanted to do was to figure out what the retail trade area was for Gun Barrel based off of multiple locations. In the past, studies have been done to build a retail trade area based off of one location. So an organization like ours or an economic development corporation, similar entity may come into a community and do a study on your Walmart and only on the Walmart in order to build what they believe is your retail trade area. We do it for multiple locations, different retail outlets, different types of shopping centers to get multiple views at what your shopper base is coming from, coming to shop for. So we'll go through a few of those today. So the multiple locations thing is very important. So what were the locations, you might be asking? Well, one of them was Walmart, because that's a big attraction here, right? But as well as Walmart, we had 4 others, which included your Bell Strip Center, and we did the entire center, okay? The CVS, Chili's, AutoZone, and Taco Casa Strip, because those were right up next to one another. Their parking lots connected in some circumstances. If not, the properties butted right up against one another. We're able to consider all 4 of those businesses as one location. So that was our second cell phone user study. The third was Lowe's. The fourth was Sears, hometown outlet here. And then the fifth was Walmart. What we're going to go through here in the next few slides are heat maps that show from where your shoppers are coming from to shop at those locations for the previous year at all hours of the day. So what we did is we went in and we built a geofence. Essentially, we drew a boundary around each one of those properties, the building itself, the entire property that included the parking lot. And what that did is if any shopper went into that location, used their cell phone to make a call, to receive a call, to send a text, to receive a text, to go online and price check against Amazon, any of those situations, it would have pinged. We would have captured that data, and it would have been included in this map. Now, in these maps, it's very important to note this isn't a one-off. This isn't somebody coming to Gun Barrel to Walmart for one shopping experience. These are multiple, between 2 and 100 occasions where they came to that location and used their cell phone in one fashion or another. So keep that in mind. These, it's not based off of drive time or radius or anything like that. These are actual shoppers that came into your city and visited those locations. So with that, we'll go to the Bell Shopping Center first, give you an idea of what that shape looks like. And I apologize for the graininess, and I apologize for a little bit of lagginess in the technology. We've kind of had to improvise this morning. But you should get a pretty good idea of what that shape is. Up in the northwest part of the top left, I apologize, part of that map is Dallas-Fort Worth. You can see a little bit of exposure there, people coming from the center of town. More than likely, as we know, you have the lake here, so those are people that probably came and visited the lake or visited some other event that was happening here in town, perhaps some family that stopped in that Bell Center and spent some money and used their cell phone. You can see a large triangular shape around the lake itself that encompasses multiple communities, including the entire lake, and then a few other hot spots along the way, including Tyler to the east, and you got Athens to the southeast there. So that's what your Bell's Center looks like. And again, this is shopper exposure over the last year, 365 days. Our next location was the CVS store and its parking lot. And that, again, included all the way to Taco Casa, so all 4 of those locations. A very similar shape. You see some similarities going on between there, some consistency. And it's based off of data like this that we begin to build our retail trade area, which we'll get into in just a few minutes. That's our second location. Third location was the Lowe's Shopping Center, which, as we know, as a community, that's a large retail outlet for this area. So again, you even have a larger retail customer exposure than you did with Walmart for Lowe's. So a large geographic area from whence you're pulling shoppers. The fourth is going to be the Sears hometown store. This one did not have much exposure. You're not getting multiple shoppers coming to that location over the last year, or a shopper showing up multiple times and using their cell phone. In total transparency, on occasion we'll take a look at a location such as this and see how many customers came there and used their cell phone one time as opposed to 2 to 100 times. And you have a little bit larger of an area, not much. But again, we base all of our findings off of multiple uses of that cell phone on that location. So not much coming from the Sears there. It gives you an idea. And the fifth one being Walmart, which we'll show you. It's going to be very similar to your Lowe's. Not quite as widespread, but gives you a pretty good idea. So you can see there's a consistency there of where your shoppers are coming from. And based off of all 5 of those, what we did is we went and overlaid all of those maps. Again, over 140 maps on top of one another. And then to build a retail trade area, what we consider to be a primary retail trade area is 85% of all of those data points. And we draw a geographic location around that. So here are all 5 maps, one on top of the other. All 140 maps, technically, one on top of the other. Right there you can see Gun Barrel City. And then what we did is we zoom in a little bit. And that's your retail trade area. That's 85% of all cell phone user usage across those 5 locations for the past year. Okay, so it's a fairly large geographic area. You're reaching all the way up to Terrell, down to the south of Athens, almost to the southwest towards Corsicana, not quite all the way. But there along Highway 31, you've got a pretty good distance. So it gives you a good idea. And again, we've got multiple looks at this shape and how we got to it in an exhaustive report that's been submitted to you through the EDC. So now what I would like to do is go over what is the information that we pulled from that. I mean, a map is nice and a shape around the city is nice, but what does that mean whenever we crunch numbers? And that's what we'll go into now. So this is what you get. Within that geographic boundary that we built, that you just saw, the shaded area, there are 142,288 individuals that live within that area as of 2017's most recent demographic estimates. Pretty substantial population. The retail trade area median household income for 2017 is $48,957, which is above average, specifically above average for the South. Average retail trade area median age is 41.7 years, which is larger, or it's an older population than what most of the studies we've conducted are, but it's still a fairly young population. It's a mature population, but it's definitely not over the hill by any stretch of the imagination. And then your retail and restaurant sales leakage. These are the dollars that the population that fall within that geographic area spend, whether they go and spend it in Dallas-Fort Worth or Nashville, Tennessee, or in their hometowns, or here in not here in Gun Barrel, but any other community outside of Gun Barrel, just shy of $1.5 billion that the city of Gun Barrel could capture if you were to capture all sales for all individuals within that area. Up to now, do we have any questions from the board?
How do you get to that $1.4 billion number?
So what we do is we take the sales that are reported within the city of Gun Barrel, we subtract that from the sales that are reported for the retail trade area itself. And there are a ton of mathematical algorithms that we go through, but we know that that's the closest educated guess that you can come up with based off of that geographic area, based off of the demographic and psychographic profiles of the neighborhoods that fall within there, as well as actual business sales data that's collected by the U.S. government and our sources, Nielsen and Esri. So again, it's the most accurate number you're going to be able to find using that cell phone user data. I'm sorry, yes.
Were you able to drill into that median age at all? I would expect that to be kind of bimodal, because we have a lot of retirees around the lake.
Well, that's the truth. I mean, it is your. These are residents that reported, and again, this is not just for Gun Barrel City. This is for the entire area. So there's a lot of your retail trade area that's not around the lake by any stretch of the imagination. These are residents, though. These are people that report those locations as their primary residents that are reported within that median age estimate. Does that answer your question?
Well, but do you have any backup data as far as the distribution of
Oh, absolutely. Yes, sir. And again, we have an exhaustive report that'll go through that I'll be happy to pull up here in a few minutes if you would like, or we could talk afterwards.
That's fine.
We'll have a
Offline's
copy
fine.
of it this afternoon.
Okay. Thank you.
But yes, we drill down into it deeply. Out of the $1.5 billion, what you should be capturing, $1.5 billion, correct? No, I mean there's no community that there's nothing I could throw out there to you. It's completely dependent on the community. I was talking to Lee earlier about the community I grew up in, Carlsbad, New Mexico. Whenever I was a child, we captured no retail trade. I mean, it was very minimal. Over the past few years, our economy has developed. We've got some incredible economic developers that have come in that have been able to attract some additional retail and restaurants. And with that, again, we're a community similar to Gun Barrel in that we were in the Southwest. Distance between communities was fairly large. People would drive 45 minutes, an hour and a half to go to a Sam's or a Lowe's. Again, if you get another retail outlet similar to a Lowe's, it's going to increase that substantially. Because of the communities you have around here and the population's willingness to drive a good distance, as opposed to going all the way into Dallas-Fort Worth and fighting that traffic. You have a ton of opportunity to capture some retail. Some sales.
Along that line of thinking, you've been talking to a number of national chains, Academy, et cetera, right? So what kind of restrictions they put on how far away you can be? And can we... Academy people tell me that 150 to 200,000 people within 20 miles. Okay. And does this, do we have mileage... Do we have a way of sorting the data if we take a 20-mile ring?
Oh, sure. I mean, I could. It's not included in the report, a 20-mile ring, but Ashley and I'll go over that this afternoon, and we'll be able to present that to you.
Okay. So I would think what we would want is, if we're talking to national chains, so what is the geography we're allowed, because they're going to have their certain limitations, right? So we want to be able to go to them and give them exactly the kind of figures they want, right? So if we have a way of doing that as part of this study rather than, I mean, I like everything you've done here, but what we can submit to those national chains is hard data that they're looking for. So Lee, you got a good understanding of what they're looking for from a, and I just want to make sure we can parse that data before you leave so that we have those figures so we can put a proposal in front of them.
It's not part of this study, and it wasn't a part of the agreed-upon study. Now, then, what we have discussed as part of our project, which is not included in the data portion, is showing the Economic Development Corporation some of the tricks of the trade in retail recruitment, in which the EDC itself will be able to pull those numbers based on specific requirements, depending on which retailer you're going after, and they can generate that themselves.
As long as we've got access
you'll have
to the
access
data
to
and
it.
we know how to write the, the macro or whatever it takes to use the data to get what we need.
Yes, sir. I mean, it's a service we provide, but it's not part of this proposal that we put together in the project that we did. But we will teach the EDC how to do it themselves.
Lee, are you going to be well-versed enough to where you can do this?
Yes, sir.
Without Ashley?
Yeah.
Okay. I have a question about your populations.
Yes.
I'm looking at your trade area,
Yes.
and then I flip to the next page, which is this,
Yes.
and we've got 142,000 people.
Yes.
Well, I can tell you right now, Terrell, Kaufman, and Canton added together are about 500,000. Where are you getting your number?
Terrell, Kaufman,
Terrell's over 100,000.
in itself.
The city of Terrell.
Okay.
What's the population of Kaufman? It's got to be 60 or 70, right?
It's not. What it's not doing is not incorporating the entire city itself. If you look into our map, you'll see it's not incorporating the entire city limits. It's taking a portion of that community. So Terrell, it didn't take about the north half of the community. Kaufman, it barely touched the southeastern border of their city limits.
Well, the map I'm looking at has Kaufman totally darkened out. Am I looking at the wrong map? I'm looking at the map that's the page before what we were looking at.
Oh, Kaufman. Yes. Okay.
That map right there.
No, you're right. Yes.
You've got Kaufman totally encompassed. You've got Canton probably 3/4 encompassed. Terrell pretty much all encompassed. And you add in the lake area population, which if you take all the towns around the lake, I'm not even including Athens.
Sir, Kaufman's population is 7,181.
7,000. Their high school's the same size as ours.
Okay.
Terrell's is 17,329 as of 2014.
Okay. I thought they were bigger than that.
Yes, sir.
From this data, can you guess to some extent what percentage of family income is spent on taxable sales?
Can we deduce what's based on taxable sales?
Yeah. Taxable retail sales, which is our lifeline.
We'll break into that in just a few minutes.
Okay.
Yes, sir. We did a gap analysis on your retail and restaurant sales. So the number that you saw, that $1.5 billion or just shy of, we'll break that into individual retail sectors. How much is spent into each one of those versus how much Gun Barrel could potentially pull in ultimately. And if that doesn't answer your question, then we'll move into the more detail.
So you've referenced some of your numbers versus other studies you've done in the past.
Yes.
Do we have any visibility to how we stack up compared to our neighboring cities?
Compared to your neighboring cities, to be perfectly transparent with you, a lot of your neighboring cities are going to have a similar trade area to what you have. What I mean by that is you're taking a lot of their residents, that are coming in here. Whenever it comes to your neighboring cities, again, that was not part of our study comparing you versus them. It's just showing what you could capture from them. But again, with that, the technology and the information we're going to provide to the EDC later today, they'll be able to go and pull specific data numbers from those communities, average sales per household, in individual retail sectors, average household income, so on and so forth. So you'll be able to see those numbers. We didn't incorporate that as part of our study to try to keep, again, this is what we would consider a phase one study. We work with communities currently on 3-year contracts. And so this is a small part of what we would typically do. And in order to try to keep our time and thus cost down, we essentially worked with Lee, we worked with the EDC to provide them with tools in which they could go and do these things on their own.
Okay.
These tools are, what we provided, these data packages, are what we use in our retail recruitment on behalf of communities, the exact same type of reports and same type of marketing pieces that we send directly to retailers and site selectors to get them to locate our client communities. So they'll be able to do the same work that we do. We're essentially giving you guys the secret sauce. So, but we're not doing all the work for you. So will it be available to you? Yes. Is it part of what we did? No.
No, that's fine.
Yes, sir. Okay. May I move on to the next slide, or are there any other additional questions? We will move forward. So what we did here is, again, working through that retail trade area. These are a few of the hot points of that, including the retail trade area population growth over time. You can see in 2000, the population of that trade area is 123,177 versus now in 2017, it's 142,288, which we discussed that number a little while ago. At your 2022 projection, which is what we expect in 5 years, is 145,350 with an annual growth rate of 0.43 over the next 5 years. That's an aggressive growth rate. That's good. That means your retail trade area is growing. The last community study I did, similar to Gun Barrels, the population growth for their retail trade area was 0.03, and they were happy about it because it was growing. So the fact that you have 0.43, that's exponentially larger than some of the previous studies we've done recently. Your part of the country is growing. It's growing quickly. Without diving too deeply into it, my gut feeling from growing up and spending a lot of time in Dallas and in this region, you're going to be getting quite a few residents from the metro itself moving in this direction and into your retail trade area. So into the Terrell and the Kaufmans. While it may not be 60 or 70,000 yet, I wouldn't be surprised that in the next few years they're growing pretty quickly. And then hopefully you're capturing their retail sales. So just expect that over the next few years to see some significant growth in your trade area and thus shopper base. Now then within that, we touched earlier on estimated income for households. Your median income, which we talked about earlier, was for 2017 was $48,957 per year per household. We expect that to grow to $53,115 over the next 5 years. Your per capita as of 2017 was $24,405, and your per capita in 2022 we expect to be $27,748. You can see the trade area educational attainment. This is all broken out and into even more exhaustive detail through our reports, as well as the race and ethnicity breakout. And you'll see that. You see a snapshot of it in 2017. You'll see the previous years as well as what we expect those to be in the next few years.
I'm assuming these income dollars are based on today's dollars?
Yes, 2017 dollars.
Okay. So the 2022 number doesn't include any type of inflation or anything?
Well, it does include inflation, but you're still expecting it's going. Yes, it's based on today's dollars, but the number's not expected to change much. I mean, the value may be different, but the number of dollars that people are going to be expecting to get is going to remain the same. Number, not value. We won't go through this line by line. I won't really mention this. This is just to show you the breakout of the gap analysis that we did, the leakage study. And so we said $1.457 billion a little while ago, $1.458 billion. This breaks it down to retail sectors. Okay, so this will show you leather goods, how many dollars are currently being spent in Gun Barrel versus how many could be. The same with electronic stores and general stores and automotive parts and suppliers and so on and so forth. It'll give you an exhaustive breakdown of what those look like. This is the second page of it. And with that, I will conclude this presentation. But again, we've got hundreds and hundreds of pages and files that we've submitted to you that you are more than welcome to come through and ask questions to me at any time via email, text, phone call. We are always available to our clients. As of now, can I answer any other questions?
So, number one, nice job presenting, nice study. Thank you for your time. So one thing that would be helpful for us is to be able to compare and contrast this to other areas. So you guys do this a lot. You mentioned, in the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
Yes.
And so we've got the data packet of our stuff.
Yes.
Is there any way we can compare it to other regions, other areas of data that you have? I mean, it's probably not in the packet, or is that a separate study we have to do? Or
Well, 5 years ago, that was a big part of retail recruitment. Going and doing a competitive analysis of your competing communities, and then submitting that. Essentially, what we would do is we would submit it to our clients, but you didn't really do anything with it after that. The retailers don't want to know the negatives of the communities, across the street. They want to know what the positives of your community are, and what can you do? Why are you attractive to me? Don't worry about the other guy. What can you do to make a nice offer to me to get me to locate in your community? That's 90% of our job. These data packages and the marketing pieces are good. They give you an idea of who you can shoot for. I mean, who your target audience should be in retail recruitment and marketing. Beyond that, you have to go and sell yourself. You have to sell your community.
Well, I was looking at it a little bit differently from the standpoint of if I had a different region that was somewhat similar to ours, and they had these three retailers, a sporting goods, a whatever, and they were successful, then I might be able to use that going to a sporting goods company and say, listen, this region's very much like ours.
Yes.
They have either you or one of your competitors in it. It's been very successful, so wouldn't you want to think about this one? That's the way I was thinking about it. I mean, it is a competition thing, but it's more of, rather than them versus us, it's more of additive.
What you'll typically see in that, and we do work in that arena, son, but that's more of, as opposed to going and doing retail recruitment, that's more of a developer recruitment, where you're going to go and attack developers and attract them to your location. And for example, you'll see Hobby Lobby and TJ Maxx next door to each other a lot. That's because their developer really likes those two stores next to one another because they're good tenants, and the stores like being next to one another because a similar shopper group visits both locations. So if they can hit one, they can automatically bounce across the other. Could you do it? Yes. Did we do it? No. But once again, with the tools that we've provided and that we will provide by the end of the day, you'll be able to go and look at individual regions, their retail clusters, and if you would like to compare your community to theirs, you can.
Well, that leads me to another interesting question you brought up there. So do you find that it's better to go after the developers that put multiple of these stores and locations, or the retail themselves?
It depends on what you're looking to do. You've got a strong development here with your Bell Center. They just located a Starbucks in that same center. You can work with your current developers to expand, with your current landowners to expand, or you can go and look at selling property to a large developer. It depends on what you would like to do as a community. Either way is effective. It completely depends on what your available property inventory is. If you have a large chunk of property that the city might own or that a landowner wants to get rid of, you can go after a large development. But oftentimes, and what I've seen in Gun Barrel is you've got a piece here, you've got a piece there. You could put an Aldi on one. You could put an H-E-B on another. I haven't noticed, now then I haven't dug that deep into your real estate inventory, but it depends on that. And it also depends on what type of incentive program you're interested in providing. It's a lot easier to locate an individual retailer as opposed to a large developer. They're going to want a lot more.
To get back to the marketing use of this information.
Yes, sir.
Are these numbers something that let's just assume that we're looking at an individual retailer,
Yes, sir.
Say grocery store. Are these numbers something that you hand to their real estate guy and he takes as the Bible?
It depends on the retailer. Depends on the restaurant. I have a specific example. I don't want to give a name though. They're actually a chain that's in Gun Barrel. Gave me a call last week and asked how do you use cell phone user data? We're a consultant, so we're able to move more quickly as a small team as opposed to a large retail establishment who has to change their entire process and procedure if there's a change in technology. The same thing with the community. It takes you longer to steer the ship than it might for me. in our business. And so we, as well as a handful of other consultants, are using cell phone user data right now, and the retailers are interested. They're wanting to know, how did you come up with that? Because that's real data. It's not a guess. It's not a drive time, and we're hoping people drive 30 minutes to get to Gun Barrel. This is showing actual shopper information, people that came here multiple times and used that cell phone at that location. So they're very interested in it. It depends on the retailer, though. What it will do is it will get their attention, showing that you have 148,000 people in that population that are coming into your location to do shopping into your community. And then they'll go run their own numbers and verify it, which the numbers will hold up. And then depending on what their model is, they'll locate or they won't locate. Or if it's 10,000 population off in the example of Academy, you may be able to incentivize them a little bit. And I don't know what the policies of the community are on that, but tools like that help them get over that 10,000 population hump.
I guess what I'm trying to get at is this study or whatever Lee pulls off of what you're going to provide him with.
Yes, sir.
That paperwork, that study,
Yes, sir.
needs to be handed
Yes.
to somebody, not emailed, not mailed.
Sure. Yes.
Hey, look at our numbers, we're great.
Yes.
There has to be a physical.
Yes.
We'd like you to look at our town. Oh, and by the way, we've got this as well.
Yes. So, absolutely, the packages that we've put together, and I've already spoken with them about the proper procedure and how they hand these out at what interval. But we've included marketing pieces as well as a drill down in demographic and psychographic information that look great, that make Gun Barrel look great, because Gun Barrel is great. But you can print out and you can hand it directly to a site selector or a retail real estate consultant or whoever it is that you might be trying to attract to your community. You can go and hand it directly to them if you would like to. We suggest that you do that. If you would like to use the numbers and build your own marketing pieces, you own it. It's yours to do with however you would like. We don't brand our things heavily with our company logos. It's all about Gun Barrel. It's yours to use however you would like. But that's all included. Yes, sir. So we've included the hard data. We've also included marketing pieces along with it.
And you mentioned it's cell phone data, so all the carriers provide you the generic information, the data that you're mining from, or how do you get that data?
Yes, it's brought from, it's compiled into one database that we work off of and one toolbox that we use from all the major cell phone providers in the country. And some out of the country, but mostly all the ones within the country.
Marketing question here to the one Rob was asking, but I'm kind of concerned because we need a story behind this. And you made the point that the area, the demographic area you're looking at, is bigger than the lake.
Yes.
But if you look at the heat maps in the beginning, most of them were kind of centered on the lake with some blobs around other places. A lot of the site selectors have arbitrary criteria, 20-minute drive time
Yes,
or
sir.
something like that.
Yes, sir.
So would you say that the lake is an economic entity?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. The lake itself being an economic driver.
Right. The lake, which is centered on Gun Barrel City.
Sure. Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
I mentioned earlier, any tourist destination is going to be an economic driver for your community. I grew up in a tourist city,
Right.
Where we had a big hole in the ground called the Carlsbad Caverns that people came from all over the world to see, and it held our economy up until the oil boom in the early 2000s. So yes, I'm a deep believer in tourism and in destination being an economic driver. Yes, absolutely. You need to market it. You are marketing it, but you need to continue to do so. It's smart to diversify.
Sure.
Yes.
And it's
That gives us something to hang our story on.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And it's my understanding that the numbers you provided are that purple map area,
Yes, sir.
population, how much they're spending and all that. So when you have a red heat map around the Dallas area of people coming down here and spending,
Yes.
that doesn't capture any of that economic activity, correct?
No, it does not. It does not capture those, what you're speaking of, those hot spots that were up around the Dallas area and the outliers outside of that purple shaded area. It doesn't capture those, no. We only captured the information from within that trade area, which is 85% of your cell phone user data, which is what a primary trade area is built off of. Now, then sometimes people would like to see a secondary or a tertiary trade area, secondary being 90 to 95% of all of your shoppers, and the tertiary being 98 to 100%. You're really going out there to say that that's your retail market.
Well, can you extrapolate from, so you got the data on how many people were there that came here and shopped,
Yes.
right? Is there any way of extrapolating what that monetary spend would be?
The individuals from, let's just say, one of those spots.
Yeah, so you got the big red spot at Dallas. Is there a way of extrapolating, okay, and I'm making numbers up here, right? So 10,000 people from that area visited Gun Barrel, and here's the data that we have on them. Therefore, we can extrapolate when they were there, they spent X.
Down to that detail to those individuals, I wouldn't be comfortable. I wouldn't be confident that they were as accurate as what you would probably hope they would be, because you're dealing with neighborhoods and you're dealing with a densely populated area. So to go in and build, it would be incredibly expensive, and it would be, I don't want to say it would be a waste of anyone's time or money, because I believe if you want to find something, we can find it, but it would be, it wouldn't, unless you're thinking of something very specific, I don't see it being valuable in the end game, going and pulling that additional 10 to 15% of a population that do not live in your area and that may show up twice a year when they're visiting family or friends on the lake.
Yeah, the thinking was more around, okay, and I'm making this up, right?
Yes.
Okay, so there's 5,000 people from Plano that come and have weekend homes on the lake, and they have much higher average incomes, and they spend a much higher amount when they come to town. That kind of. So what I'm hearing is it's probably too hard and doesn't make sense. But that was the.
I mean, we'd be happy to do it, but it would be a long drawn out process to get that detailed for those. I mean, we could go and get individual households if you would like, but to do so is two things. It's a major. It could be perceived as an invasion of privacy, and secondarily, it could be. Because you're getting very specific at that point. Right now we're dealing with large geographic regions with populations. And you'll see pin maps of homes, but to do that specific, it would be really...
Well, for the heat map, we would have a number of people that are traveling from the Dallas-Fort Worth area down here, right? We would have that number in the study? So we could at least say we don't have numbers around it, but we know...
Yeah, well, we didn't include that in the study, but we could provide that to you, and... I mean, yes. I mean,
yeah, I'm just trying to put myself in Lee's shoes, and if I go and I try to attract, and I'm making something up, an Academy Sports, and let's say we're on the borderline of acceptance, and say in addition to this study, we know we have 10,000 people traveling down from a very financially lucrative area of Plano, Texas that have lake homes around here. I don't have hard data on it. You know what I mean? I'm just trying to give you additional things that you can use as leverage.
And so, again, what you're looking at is within that shaded area is 85% of all of your data. So there's 15% outside of that shaded area spread across the country, not just spread across right here, but spread across the country. So you're talking about 18%. So your Dallas area and your Plano, perhaps, there's not going to be a tremendous amount of data that we're able to pull on those individuals. Now that if you know that you have a certain number of homes here that are owned by individuals in Plano or Granbury, Texas, or wherever, you can, you should absolutely go to them with that information. But as part of this study, and as part of what we would do as a corporation, and what most similar individuals or companies would do, it wouldn't add a whole lot to what you're advertising, unless you're able to prove that those individuals come on a regular basis and would spend a substantial amount of money at an academy. But what they're going to be most interested in looking at are who are your regular shoppers, because that's what we want to do. We want to create consistent, reliable, expected income for our store, not the occasional one-off who might show up every once in a while, but who are the people that come to Gun Barrel on a regular basis to spend money in that area.
Yeah, I was just, and we can get off of this, I was just thinking more of, you got an Academy Sports, you got somebody coming from Plano, and they're going to be going and buying kayaks and all the lake crap.
Yes, sir.
If you will, right? And I was just wondering if there's another way of making a case there. But
oh, absolutely. There are other ways.
I would think that'd be part of the sales pitch.
Well, that's what I'm trying to give him, like if we knew, okay, there's 10,000 people coming from that. You said we have those numbers, right? So that will be
Well,
one more bullet, yes.
What you have, you have pinpoints, and I'm looking at Lee because I showed him earlier on the map, and we can go into specifics if you'd like to in a minute. I'll be happy to pull it up on the screen. But you'll have pinpoints of households that have come to Gun Barrel over the last year multiple times and used their cell phone in one of your retail destinations. It's not going to be 10,000. So,
Okay, well, where I got that number was, you said it was 148,000, and that represented 85% of the
85%.
data. And if I got a big red circle in Dallas, it must be at least 50% or
not necessarily.
30%
It's about
of that other.
no. It's about concentration of. So in our study, in our maps, we have our heat maps, which I showed you just for ease of the presentation, and then we have pin maps that show individual locations of households and of workplaces that people are coming from to shop in Gun Barrel. And so you could take a look at those and zoom in and find out what neighborhood they're in and even the individual property that those individuals lived on. It's not going to be a substantial enough population that a large retailer is going to consider it being part of your retail trade area. Just like you mentioned earlier, you were talking about specific retailers have a drive time. Well, if you're talking about a 20 or 30-minute drive time, Dallas, Fort Worth, more than likely those individuals that live in the middle of Dallas, if they want to go and buy a kayak, they more than likely have a truck, and they will go buy it at an Academy or a Dick's Sporting Goods or wherever they want to there because they've got one down the street. They probably won't drive to Gun Barrel and buy one here. Unless it's just out of sheer convenience, in which case, more than likely those retailers aren't interested in the outliers. And I'm only speaking from our experience in retail recruitment. They're more concerned with the average shopper that's going to be hitting that shop multiple times, which means they live closer to the area. Again, 20 or 30 minutes away, not closer to one of their other stores.
How do they handle destinations where you don't have a large population?
Well, I'm thinking Destin, Florida, for example, because it's a really good example of that. They have a large, and I mean very substantial tourism population coming in on a daily basis. It's not on a weekender type deal. They have large resorts. Their entire economy is built around that. And they also have a very good, an incredible idea of what the income for those individuals that are coming are. You have a tourist destination here, but as of where the market is developed, as of right now, you don't have a large enough tourism population coming in on a daily basis to sustain that. What you have to do is you have to market to the retailers that your current trade area, which is 85% of those data points, can support. Now then, again, that other 15, if they come to Gun Barrel twice a year and spend some money, that's icing on the cake for these retailers. But they want to know that there's consistent money coming from the people that live in and around Gun Barrel. And again, if you'd like us to look at it and provide it, or if we can look at it and provide it, we'll be more than happy to do so. Just in our experience, I don't see the numbers being substantial enough from one geographic location outside of that trade area to be a large attraction or a shiny object for a big retailer to come in. I think that your trade area is strong enough to pull in. We specifically mentioned Academy earlier, so we're talking about minutia here. I honestly believe that with your trade area, there's a potential with the proper incentives package and proper offering to a retailer like that. You've got a shot at capturing them. I don't think that additional 15% outside of that trade area is going to change it one way or the other.
Thank you.
Yes.
Population, we have a situation where our population is near stagnant, and if we look at current building activity in Maybank versus Gun Barrel City, it might be a fair guess that within 5 years Maybank's population is greater than ours. Is there anything in here that could tell us what type of housing we should try to encourage? Starter homes for families with 2.1 children, which is what's going on in Maybank, basically. They have some fourplexes with curbside parking that they want to use to attract the over 55 crowd, but I don't think they like hauling groceries from the curb to the house. Sure. the retail sales that occur, is it greater with the over 55 population or with the population that has younger children?
The retail sales in Gun Barrel?
Anywhere.
Oh, anywhere. Oh, goodness.
I'm looking towards what type of housing should we encourage? I mean, we know they made a phone call here, but we don't know how much money they spent.
Yeah, that's right. So whenever it comes to Gun Barrel retail sales, the great thing about, and I'm going to answer very specifically here in a minute, but first let me put it this way. Housing was not a major part of our study. It was a retail study and a retail attraction study and a retail sales study. But based on what you have, and driving through Maybank a few times and looking at the community as well as some of the construction that's going on, I saw some of the developments you're talking about, smaller brick homes that 2 or 3 bedroom, they look nice. I think the development that's going on along the lake right now, some of the larger houses are great. That's good. It's getting rid of some of the mobile homes that were along there, and that's not, I hope I'm not stepping on people's toes. I grew up in mobile homes. I don't have anything against any of those. But whenever it comes to population growth, you've got to put some developments in. With the psychographic tapestry segmentation that we did, which is the psychographic traits as opposed to the demographic traits of your population, your psychographic traits in Gun Barrel immediately are all individuals. The vast majority, over 50% of the people that we were able to capture that live in Gun Barrel are 50 and older. I mean, a large community of seniors. So with that being the case, you could probably get away with what could be considered a starter home, because one thing we talked about, Lee, is that you have a lot of singles that actually spend a ton of time here too and that live here. You could probably get away with a bunch of 2 and 3 bedrooms that could be considered a starter home, or somebody who's looking to downsize and live close to a lake. Personal opinion, not an in-depth data study, but just what we've seen in communities similar to yours. You could start with something like that. To be honest, that's what Maybank is doing right now. They're going to attract both ends. They're going to attract the younger couples, 25 and 30, if they get a good retail base there. And they'll also be able to capture some of those over 50 that are looking to downsize from their larger homes in Dallas, have a nice yard that they can maintain, but that they can also enjoy. They're not working on all the time. So did that give you any perspective?
Somewhat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Short and to the point, I like what Maybank is doing in their home development. It's going to be good for the area. It's going to be good for their community. You're going to have the people with a lot of money build along the lake. That's just naturally going to happen, so you don't necessarily have to encourage that. It's going to happen. But you're focused on elsewhere with people that don't have as much income. They can bring more retail sales to the retailers, mid-tiers, that you're going to be attracting as a community. You're probably not going to get a Saks Fifth Avenue, so don't target those individuals. Don't target those types of home developments. Target mid-tier retail as well. If you do that, you'll be strong. The large stuff's going to build itself.
From a retail attraction standpoint, you mentioned the 140-something thousand, right, in the area.
48, yes, sir.
For the cities that are relatively close to us, does it matter whether they're in the population is in Gun Barrel? In other words, if you would double the size of Maybank,
Yeah.
from attracting a retailer standpoint, does it help us? Does it help us more if it's in Gun Barrel versus Maybank?
No, it doesn't matter. As long as they're coming to your shopping centers and spending money, that's what the retailer is going to care about. Maybank is coming to Lowe's. Maybank is coming to Walmart. If you land an academy, Maybank people are going to come to your academy because your city limits adjoin. I mean, you're right there. You're 3 minutes away, 5 minutes away. So no, they're not going to care about that. They're not going to look at community statistics. They're going to look at the retail trade area statistics. So that's what you market. Yes, if Maybank grows, if it doubles, if you can capture those retailers, it's good for you. And they're not going to care.
Oh, yeah, there is no doubt that we need to increase the development in Gunborough. I was just trying to understand from a retailer's perspective how much of an impact it would have, because, you know, we like to see growth in at least some areas growing, right? So, okay, thank you.
The things they're concerned with are shoppers coming to your area, and how close is our nearest store, because they don't want to cannibalize their own store. So more than likely, Walmart, in the time being, foreseeable future, are not going to locate a large supercenter like what they have here in Maybank, because they're cannibalizing their own store sales. They want to hit the fringes from which people are driving from, so they can capture this geographic region and over that way. They don't want their lines to cross too much, because they're not gaining any new shoppers that way. They're gaining their own shoppers, which is taking sales away from the other stores. So that's what you need. That's what you need to look at. That's what they're going to look at. Are there any more questions? Again, if any pop up, Board and Lee, as people filter them through you can all call me. You have my cell phone number in our reports. If you need it and you can't find it in there, Lee has it programmed in his phone. You can contact me anytime, and more than happy to answer any questions. More than happy to at any time, or email. So. One thing we're going to do as part of our program is we're going to show Lee and Ashley how to find retailers that are growing and that are expanding in the state of Texas, and how to individually get their contact information in an effective way that's efficient, that's not terribly time-consuming, so they can reach out to those site selectors and those real estate directors, franchise developers, so on and so forth, directly to provide them with the information that we've compiled, as well as any additional that you want to put together, and get them to locate here. So we're not just providing you with some reports. We're going to back this up with some actionable strategies and some things that are going to should be able to take your retail recruitment game up to the next level.
Well, in that regard, and I think that would be very appreciative, do you have like templates that they can use, like, hey, here's a good template of what you ought to be able to go to retailer X to attract, and here's the kind of how you want to parse the data, that kind of thing?
No, but the resources that we're going to provide them, while you wouldn't necessarily go through us, we don't have a template built. The resources that we're going to provide them with are very cost efficient and do it for you. So they'll allow you to plug in what your current real estate inventory is. So say that you've got 3/4 of an acre site, and that's the only thing that you have. You can go and plug that in and see which retailers are expanding in the state of Texas that are interested at a 3/4 of an acre site with your retail trade area population. So it's going to funnel it down to very specific, a good 25 to 30 to however many you want to go after at a time, a specific number that you should be targeting. And if someone says no, you take them off and replace them with a similar concept. We're going to help you build a process and you've got one of the best salesmen in the world whenever it comes to selling a community in Lee. What we're going to do is we're going to back that up with some technology and some strategies that are going to make his job and Ashley's job a lot easier and more consistent. So.
The problem we're going to run into now, guys, are cost of real estate and the fact that we have no buildings to go to. Again, we've attracted all these people, and they're extremely concerned that we don't have facilities that they can configure to their needs. So those are the two issues that we're going to run into.
Well, and that was kind of what I was getting at with the developer thing, right? Where a developer will come in and build the facilities and then bring the 2 or 3 or what have you.
Sure. And being right outside of Dallas, Fort Worth, you guys are within an hour's drive of a huge number of development companies. I mean, right there, there are a ton of these guys that are based out of Dallas. And if they're not there, they're in Austin. Texas is a big deal whenever it comes to retail development. So that's good. But anyway, as Lee said, the hardest thing, and you're going to see this with Maybank, is it's going to get very competitive. And I'm hoping that we beat them to the punch in having this type of information. We certainly didn't do a study for them, and we won't do a study for them, certainly not in the near future. But we, at this point, what we would suggest that you do is take this information and get very aggressive in contacting retailers and putting together, I'm using the same word again, but aggressive proposals for them to locate. Because if you're not, your competing community is going to. Luckily, you've got Walmart and Lowe's here, which are huge retail drivers. You're bringing people from a large, that geographic area we were talking about is huge, and they're coming here. But if they need something for if they need some feed, or if they need something for their garden, there's a good chance they're going to drive over to Tractor Supply in Maybank. So what we need to do from this point moving forward is find those niche retailers that people that shop at Walmart and Lowe's also want to hit while they're, quote unquote, coming to town, right? So whenever I was growing up, we'd go to town and go and hit Sam's or go to Lubbock, Texas, and hit whatever store it was. Same thing. What else are they going to want to hit that they don't want to come to for another couple of weeks or a month? They can pick up what they need and then go back home and get it before Maybank gets it. So I hope that what we provided was helpful. I know that once you dig into the rest of our packages, you'll see some additional insights that'll be helpful. With that, if there are no more questions, I'll go on ahead and conclude. With the permission of the board. May she ask a question? Sure. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. How's that? Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am, you're not. Sure. So that 142,000 number we were talking about is not number of people that use their cell phone in a store. That's how we got a good cross-cut and an average of how many people, what the area was, people that did use their phones were coming. So you are incorporated in the study. It's just because you're within that boundary. So that's the population for every single person that lives within that boundary. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We want to be transparent and clear. Any more?
The presentation will be up on our website within 48 hours, and we will continue to look at things that we think people need to see and add those to the website as we go. Don't want to bury information, but we will put things on there that we can look at.
Mr. Butler,
Motion to adjourn.
thank you very much.
Thank you for
Thank you. Nice job.